IVM.
Welcome to Absolutely Right, a show that celebrates and decodes minds of some amazing achievers. I'm your host Aditi Surana. I'm a graphologist and a high-performance coach. Our guest today is an internationally renowned filmmaker, Leena Yadav. With a solid grounding in editing and direction of fiction as well as non-fiction shows for television, Leena moved to directing and writing films in early 2000s. Her well-acclaimed films include Shabd, Teen Patti, starring two of the greatest living legends of our time, Amitabh Bachchan and Academy Award winner Sir Ben Kingsley, and Parched, a film that explores gender politics in a misogynistic society set in rural India. Leena won the prestigious Impact Award at the Stockholm International Film Festival, besides the 30 awards at various other film festivals. In today's episode, we will discuss what makes this exhausting, labor-intensive filmmaking process fulfilling for Leena. What are some peculiar challenges faced by women filmmakers in India? What did Leena learn from working with Sir Ben Kingsley? And how changing signature led to or coincided with her journey as a filmmaker. Talking to Leena was electrifying. She is intense, sensitive, and highly observant. I feel privileged to have Absolutely Right as my platform and graphology as my tool to peep into the fascinating world of such amazing people. She will join us on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned. Hi, Leena. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Aditi.
I'm so excited to have you. Now, I know that we have been speaking about graphology for quite some time and you have been curious in this topic. So before we start the whole conversation and I speak about you, what questions do you have about this topic?
I'm very fascinated with it, and because I think there's so many things that we reject because they don't fit into our sense of logic. But whatever little conversations that I've had with you, and I've heard from a friend who's been doing this course with you,
Yes.
that it's very, very accurate, and it can give you insights which are very, very amazing. But I've never looked at it from my perspective. Studying my own handwriting. I got in touch with you regarding a documentary that I was doing. And already things that you've told me are so fascinating that I'm a bit nervous and excited to know what my handwriting throws up.
Okay, so let's jump in. Let's figure this out. Leena, I have a few questions before we begin talking about your writing. Now, what has been your journey as a writer, director, editor, and a filmmaker, but more importantly, as a woman in the industry?
Okay, so I started off as an editor because I felt like, if I know one technical skill really well, it'll equip me better as a director.
That
So,
too, editing back in the day?
yes, there weren't very many, but there was a very, very strong female editor called Renu Saluja, who was
Okay.
like path-breaking, and
Wow.
she did Bandit Queen and Parinda and
Oh,
some
okay.
amazing films. So she was like a kind of role model. But I started off like from the basics. I assisted Raju Hirani actually as an editor, and I didn't find it too easy to get into because people weren't very used to seeing female editors. So
Right.
I think I edited for a really short time before I started directing because I really didn't get very exciting jobs as an editor. But the thing is, I was so headstrong in wanting to do what I wanted to do. So even if I did face any discrimination, I actually didn't make a story out of it in my head. I just moved on, and slowly, slowly, I kind of sifted out people who had that problem with me being a woman.
Oh, wow.
And and I found a really nice balanced world. And I realized that, especially as a director, when you're on set, it's probably only in the first 5-10 minutes that people look at you, oh, it's a female director.
Right.
After that, if you know your job, everybody's there to do a job, finish it. It's a tiring job to do the job and go home. And once you know your job, I think even if people do have any kind of these things in
Preconceived
their head,
notions, and yeah.
it gets out of there because then you get busy doing the job. So I mean, I've always approached it like that. I've never wanted to be in a box of being, that I have some special abilities as a woman. That's why I'm there.
Right.
I'm just like any individual who is trying to make a film, and it's tough enough for anyone to make a film, to be honest.
We
So
actually
yeah.
look at films and we look at the journeys, only from the acting perspective. But I believe that the whole idea and the curation process and the research process, everything builds the entire process, right? So, which is your favorite part?
Uh, okay, so I genuinely practice and believe completely. I mean, even when I was an editor, that it is the most collaborative art, filmmaking.
Filmmaking,
Any aspect of it that you do, you're part of a bigger machinery,
right?
and you hold the pieces to your part. You know,
Hmm.
so you're the master of your part of it.
Hmm.
But at the same time, there has to be an attitude of collaboration, and if you don't surrender to that, then you're blocking out, because you have at any point in time 10 to 15 artists performing,
With
and
you,
you're fortunate that it's your vision that they're all trying to perform to or interpret,
true.
so if you don't let them in and you try to be Harvey on them,
Hmm.
you kind of dominate.
Dominate your ideas.
Yeah. Then you're losing out on a lot of magic that can come from the other artists.
What they can do
So
to take your vision to the next level beyond what you
yes,
had imagined. How nice.
absolutely.
Wow.
And that is the magic that I live for. And for me, that's why the most interesting process. See, writing and editing are the two bookends of
Right.
filmmaking, and they're pretty lonely processes. I mean, even if
Mm.
you're doing it collaboratively with other people,
Yeah,
they
but
are
you
more
are
lonely.
confined in a
Yeah,
space, and yeah,
in
true.
a space, and even in your own head, you're very confined. And
Mm.
when you're actually shooting the film, that's when lots of things happen. And for me, that moment, being on that set with so many people, and
Mm.
everybody on that set, whether it's a spot boy or it's a light boy, or it's a cameraman or anybody, everybody is contributing to every moment that you're creating in various ways,
Oh,
whether it is enhancing your mood in some way or giving you chai at the right time,
yeah,
to
true.
the communication that happens within that set. And then when you hit that mark of magic, it is something that you live for, and it doesn't happen all the time.
Sure.
So you go through the lows only to be able to reach that one high again, and it comes back.
So it's literally
So I
like
mean, for me, that's
chasing
the
your
most.
chasing your one point of excellence to another point of excellence. So
Absolutely.
do you remember that first moment where you felt that, oh my God, I can't believe that I am getting to do this?
Uh, yeah, taking the first shot of my first film, Shabd.
Wow.
Before that, I directed a lot of television.
Mhm.
But just before taking that shot, what hit me was, television comes and goes, it has a shelf life.
Right.
I mean, after 5 years, nobody's going to ask me about, why I did what I did at some
Sure.
point. But this film is something which could live on for like potentially hundreds of years. And even 20 years down the line, somebody can ask me why I did something or why I portrayed something in a particular way. And that for me was such a huge responsibility,
Yeah.
and at the same time such a huge privilege, that I was so much in awe of it that I said, I have to value everything that I create. I have to value it, and I have to be responsible for it.
But with the amount of passion that you speak about your topic, I feel that feeling is still there. Every time you have described even one
Oh yeah.
interview. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, every time I take a shot, I'm back to doing it all over again. And I'm back to feeling that, will I be able to do justice to it? And I've never felt like, oh, I know now. I've never felt that, because everything is new. It's a new moment every time. So,
There's a philosophy of optimal performance where the author speaks about the concept called flow. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And he says
mhm,
this, you require enough amount of relaxation and enough amount of tension for you to take your performance to the next level. So if you're not
absolutely.
relaxed enough, you won't be able to figure it out. If you're not intense enough or challenged enough, then you won't care about it. So
Absolutely.
this whole what I'm looking at your process, and the whole choreography of uncontrollable pieces kind of puts you through that moment where you know that I can't control everything, but I still feel I can experience it, which is so
Yes.
fascinating to even understand. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I often use this word, especially with newer actors that I work with.
mm,
I after every shot, I tell them to reset. And where by reset, I actually mean go back to zero.
mm,
Do not try to recreate something. Do
right,
not get attached, or do not try to detach also from something. Actually go to zero and create again.
yeah, that
So
actually
I often,
what you're
yeah,
saying is so beautiful and so relevant for anybody who's dealing with any situation in life. It's almost like even if you're doing a job, for you to recreate that moment where you feel the curiosity is important, and we forget that, right? We start taking things for granted. Thank
yeah,
you, that's so
absolutely.
beautiful. So when you decided to take this recent project that you're doing, I believe it's your first documentary project, tell us more about that.
So I've never really thought of doing documentaries, but in a strange way, this literally came to me. Somebody asked me whether I wanted to make a documentary, and it's based on a true case that happened. And when that case did happen, I'm sorry I cannot talk about it in
Sure,
detail,
sure.
but it was a true crime case which had happened in Delhi. And when it happened, I had so many questions in my mind which never got answered in the coming months as that
Right.
case was investigated. And when somebody asked me, do you want to make a documentary? I said, I would want to make a documentary on that one thing because I want my own questions answered. And who's better to answer it than, me myself
Figuring
go
it out.
and investigate it. Yeah.
So
And it has led to some crazily interesting conversations. I've learned so much about so many things and even about doing narrative films. I mean, if after this documentary, if I go back to do narrative, it is
mm,
a lot has shifted within me. It's going to change the way I write a script. The surrender of control while doing a documentary and letting the material speak to you, I think is something I'm going to try and carry into narrative in an
right.
interesting way.
I feel fascinated. My father was an art director, so we were brought up studying films and discussing films over dinner table almost every other day. And what he told me was, you must observe. I wanted to become a director to begin with. So he said, oh, if you want to do that, make sure that you observe people. I've just come way too far in observing people.
Yeah, from a totally different lens, but
Different. So,
same thing. Yeah.
but I feel fascinated even till date. Every time I watch a movie, I wonder how this director must have thought about this perspective, or this writer would have created this character's idea. Like when I meet a person, it's like a documentary approach for me. I'm trying to understand who you have become. I don't have any freedom to kind of design or decide, whereas you get to do that. So
Yeah.
what does it take to create such characters and such nuances in the characters? Do you bring them in your from your life? Where do you observe them from?
I am a very keen observer of people, and I really thrive off interactions. And so this lockdown has been pretty tough for me to start with.
Sure.
But then I went into another zone, and I started liking the slight perspective and distance from people also. Like initially, I just thought, how am I even going
Yeah.
to breathe and live? And, how is my mind going to work if I don't interact with people? Um, so I think I look at everything from the mind perspective,
Hmm.
whether it's for my characters or anybody. I try to understand the psychology and I work backwards from there and then reach the emotion. And sometimes I readjust the emotion to fit in with the psychology of it.
Wow.
So for me, the inside out is the most important thing. And I often change the outside to actually justify the inside because the inside journeys, if they're true,
Hmm.
then, the outside can sometimes go into bizarre and still be okay.
Sure. True.
So for me, that's the process. And that's how I work very, very closely with actors if they allow me to. Uh, so that process for me is really, really interesting. And a lot of times, though, I have to say, that what comes across in interpretation, and that's the beauty of films, that what you interpret will be different from what somebody else interprets, will be very different from what I intended to even create.
Sure. Sure.
And just hearing that or getting to know of that is so magical as a filmmaker. And so many things are actually mistakes and accidents, obviously coming from a good intention. But some of the greatest moments of cinema came out of an accident.
Do you have any of that? Do you remember any of that for you?
Uh, Not in terms of accident, but uh, very tellingly, two scenes in past which got discussed, like personally with me, at least in 20 countries where I went for festivals.
Okay.
And it just spoke so much about the wiring and the cultural uh, either acceptance or rejection of something. One was the sex scene between Radhika Apte and Adil Hussain in the cave. And one was the scene between the two women, which got interpreted in such crazily different ways, from
Than what you
extremes
had
of,
imagined.
yeah, from extremes of, is it a lesbian scene, and you never came back to that emotion. And my intention was, I actually, because for me as a filmmaker, for me, touch is really, really important. And I think we're losing that in
Oh
the
yeah.
world.
Oh my God, what's going to
And I
happen to
think that's a stronger vitamin than any pill can be.
that?
So I actually, for me, that scene was that these two women are talking to each other through touch. One is reaching out to the other and saying, I know you're bruised. And as she's doing that, she realizes that she's not been touched. And so it's a conversation through touch.
Right.
That was my intention. But I do not want the audience to only grab my intention, because their interpretation actually tells them something about themselves.
That's so true.
And it spoke so much about the discomfort with having a sexual conversation or confronting things which are sexual. To that scene in the cave where, which had this whole dance of graph of honoring the woman. It was not, for me, it was never a sexual act. It was a meeting of, souls almost. It was a very spiritual scene in the way.
Wow.
But a lot of people were very uncomfortable with the scene because it had a morality attached to it. So it was really interesting that how something you create can have so many meanings to so many people.
And it can open floodgates at a different levels that you have not
Yeah.
imagined. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, you had the privilege to work with two living legends at the same time, Amitabh Bachchan and Sir Ben Kingsley. So, what was your experience? How was it?
So Teen Patti was my first film where I worked with an international, crew. Not just Sir Ben Kingsley, but also my editor was
Okay.
from America. But it opened up this whole thing in me, because working with Sir Ben, firstly, I was really, really nervous. And I was like, how am I going to direct him? Because
Yeah.
I've looked up to him as a actor and as an artist. But I have to tell you, it was, I met him in London just before we were shooting. It was just one conversation where he just asked me about his character, and we had this conversation, and he said, "Oh, we're on the same page. So now I'll surrender to you as an actor." And the way he surrendered, I had never got that surrender from an actor ever. And that was scary to start with, because it suddenly put the responsibility and onus on me.
Right.
Because he was not protecting himself. He came there unprotected. Tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And suddenly the responsibility of even a performance that he would give would be on me. And that showed me that if you're in the right group, and as artists, you can actually surrender to each other like this, where can creation go? It can go completely to another level.
Wow.
And then working with an editor who's not from this culture, I suddenly started seeing. So then that made me realize that everything is universal actually. And the more rooted it is, the more universal it is.
That's
Because
true.
if it's true to an emotion, it applies everywhere. We are all, as humanity, we are one actually.
That's so
So
true.
if you can make an experience real for
For
you
somebody
and
who doesn't
actually real,
understand your language.
yeah, others will find their own truth within that.
So
And
you're
there is
saying
a
that
group of others in it.
so you're saying that as a director, if it hits your core, if you feel that, oh, this is working and it is making me feel that emotion, you're saying across cultures, across languages, people will also resonate with that.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's not just as a director, if in that moment we are all creating from a place of truth,
Okay.
then it becomes a truth for everybody. And look at Parched. Parched was a film shot in a village where there's no TV, where there's no information, where there's no education.
Hmm.
It touched and connected to people across the world. Like in Sweden, which is the most gender equal country in the world, I had women crying and telling me, "You made my story."
Wow.
You
That's
know?
so beautiful and powerful to hear from somebody
Yeah.
who does not have anything in common with people in the movie.
Yeah.
So that brings me to our conversation on handwriting. So what would you like me to talk about?
Now you have to answer my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Well,
I don't know where to start also. I don't know what you see in and what kind of insights you're able to see. So why don't why don't you tell me like what's the first the first glimpse, the first dominating or characteristic or whatever it is that you're able to tell that comes across when you look at my handwriting.
the first thing that stands out, and very few people are aware about it, is your ability to help people without ever mentioning it to yourself or anyone else. So there are so many people in your team or people from the past who you saw could get benefited or required help. You just quietly walked in, did what you needed to do, and walked away. And only those who know you closely would know that this is what you did. This is how you jumped in, and you did almost like, this is my duty. I got to do it, and I walk away. So I see that as a rare quality.
Wow. I mean, and this actually, I'm quite like shocked that you picked out something like this because this is so specific. I mean, this is not something that I would even expect somebody to catch from, say, like a tarot reading or, something magical that you have got from a handwriting. And Aditi, we don't know each other. We've never actually, I mean, we have had conversations. It's not even like we know each
We
other
know each other.
deeply.
True, true. So,
So
that's the beauty, right? Like all our thoughts are being woven in our bodies, and we actually express through our, as you're talking about touch, we actually express ourselves so much in a non-verbal space that we are not aware. That's why sometimes you walk into a room, and if two people have just fought in that room and you just walk in, you feel the tension. We don't require words to express that, no obvious reasons to know that. So your body is sensitive. Similarly, these small acts of kindness that you have done, you think that it is in the moment and I just did it because I had to, but it wires your character and it builds your persona, it builds your personality, and every choice that we make through this mold. So handwriting is just capturing that mold and putting it out there. So
yeah,
what
I
was
mean, what amazes me is this is like I can imagine you telling me you're strict or you're this, a quality, but something like this, I wouldn't imagine somebody could read from a handwriting. So it's pretty amazing.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So we can talk about anything that feels an active area for you to explore. Anything that feels like you are walking into a new journey, or I want to figure this space out. Or as you mentioned, this lockdown gave me so much of space to think and rethink. And when we are into that introspective mode, we actually reach those moments where we are unsure. Am I like this or am I like that? Is this something I wish to do, or should I do something else? Those all questions we can talk about through handwriting and coaching, of course, like this, like a combination.
There is a part of me that feels the sky is the limit. And in my work, I do live my life like that. If I feel I want to collaborate with someone, I won't say, oh, I don't have the money, but why would they want to work with me? I actually go ahead and just
Jump in.
ask them.
Yep.
And I feel like it's their prerogative to say no or to say you can't afford me or whatever it is.
Right.
Because in my head, you're creating something and nobody has a fixed price. So, the sky's the limit.
Right.
Uh, But that very strength in me sometimes really scares me also.
Okay.
You know,
In which ways?
I don't know, and I've never been able to process it. It's a confusion between the fear of failure and the fear of success, and I don't know which one I have sometimes. I mean, if I have to really, really think about it.
Okay.
Um, so I don't
So,
know if you can
so
shine some light on
okay, of course.
on this
So
thing that I have, which is what, like go but don't go, and am I worth it or not?
right.
It's a mix between all this.
Okay. So let's establish this whole idea of fear of success comes from I want to become successful, but it will come with some kind of cost. And then am I willing to pay that cost or to that person? Fear of success also means that once I set my bar this high, next time I have to go beyond it and kind of cross it all the time, which is not necessarily something that you wish to do, because when you do it for the first time you are following your curiosity, but when you have to recreate the magic, as you just said, it is difficult because then you have those references playing. So the fear of success in your case is very, very deeply rooted in your fear of failure. Okay, so do you have fear of failure? Yes. Do you have fear of success? Not always, but that is deeply rooted with fear of failure. So when you think about your failure in a larger level, at a larger level, in a huge manner, you know how all of us imagine our failures and then we color them, and then being a director, I'm sure you must be creating proper lighting and everything. All detailing goes through that. Now, when you create that scene in your mind, it becomes so real that you drop your willingness to even take the first step. And like I wish to do this, but I'm not sure because if I do this, I don't know what would this happen, that happen, until the process takes over. So the difference in attitude that you find is when you're focused on Leena and Leena is trying to figure this out and try to give the right answer. So if you're focused on yourself, the process is difficult, extremely, extremely difficult because you're aware of your challenges, you're aware of your limitations, and you're only operating from that box. The very moment you realize that, okay, I want to do this and this project matters to me, the story is so powerful that people require to hear it. And if I don't give that voice to these characters, nobody would be able to do justice to it. When the project, the idea becomes much larger, then you forget about yourself. And that is a point you do not fear, you do not care, you do not worry. You just jump in and you say things or you do things that otherwise you wouldn't do.
Basically, you're saying that I'm scared to jump, but once I do it, sink or swim, and then I just swim.
No, also
Is
I'm
it no?
saying I'm
No.
saying that what is the difference?
Hmm.
Jumping or not jumping, what stops you or what allows you to throw yourself off the cliff is focusing on yourself or focusing on the project. Because when the very moment the focus changes, so try this the next time you are kind of confused, ask
Hmm.
yourself, what am I focusing on? Am I worried about how people will perceive me, how good will I do, or am I concerned about the story or the conversation? The very moment that focus changes, I'll give you an example. If I'm focused on my conversation with you and I'm saying, okay, I hope I'm using the right word, the correct conversation, I hope Leena likes it, then half of my mind is busy here. The very moment my attention goes on, what can I say that would just open the floodgate and we can, like move the conversation to the next level for Leena, then I'm not bothered about how am I forming my sentences.
Okay, got that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think yeah.
And it would be a good idea, the very moment, as we have spoken about it, you will analyze yourself in the moment when you're doing it, here onwards. And I can assure you that because now you have seen the demon, little fear box sitting there. Now you can't deny it. Now, having said that, next time this happens, you will have a choice to give into your fear or choice to look at what is my focus or where is my focus. Can I focus on my project right now? Can I shift the focus? And it is possible. With practice, it will become even smoother. But initially, you will have to consciously change your focus from yourself to the project. And once you start doing that, it will change the way you feel these emotions.
It's absolutely right.
Thank you. So,
Yeah.
as we're talking about failure, I feel most stories are built in our failures. No matter how well we do and how great we do, when we sit down and analyze our lives, we actually go back and think about moments where we could not perform and how we failed and how embarrassed we were. Now, many people, when I speak with the listeners and otherwise in the conversations with people, many people do not choose things only because of their idea of failure. Now, every time, every guest that comes on the show, I ask this question. This is my favorite. That which was your favorite failure, and how did you deal with it?
Oh, I've had so many. I don't know which one to go to.
Okay.
Okay. My first film, Shabd, was it was a very non-Bollywood story,
Hmm.
but I had the fortune of making a slightly non-massy kind of a story
Right.
with really big stars because they signed on to it, and that was a blessing at that point in time. Um, but it was challenging a lot of norms in
Hmm.
what it was trying to be and do and say. Um, that film failed, and it had a lot of politics also around it, and it really really affected me really badly because not only did the film fail, but uh, I got reviews which were extremely extremely personal. It was
Hmm.
more about that I need to shut up than about the film.
Right.
um, I thought at that point that I don't think I'll ever make another film and put myself out there, because what I felt was, here was I unsuspectingly, came into this industry and made this really different film. And I thought, yeah, some people will, say, wow, you tried something different. There are
Right.
people who will like it, who will not like it. And
So you are
but
partially prepared for it, but not for this kind of.
yeah, but not for this kind of a personal kind of a thing. And at that moment, I felt like I asked for it. I'm standing naked on the signal. Obviously, people are going to call me out.
Hmm.
I'm on the road. I'm out there. But I think it gave me a major insight into the functionings of this place
Hmm.
in a very, very interesting way. And then I made an even tougher film, Teen Patti. And I realized that through these films, I was actually denying myself my true voice. And I was trying to fit into something despite not being a fit. Like, by the basic ideas that I was trying to explore, I was not a typical fit. But I was still trying to fit those ideas into this world.
Right.
And I was denying myself my true voice. And I think post Teen Patti is when I really said either I make something that really comes from within and is true to what I want to say, or I should just go for another profession.
Wow.
And that's when I made Parched against all odds. I mean, that was the toughest film I ever made, actually,
Mm.
in practical terms.
And the
But
setting
it
in.
completely changed my life, my world, my worldview, my concept. I mean, that film was like therapy almost for me.
So Leena, do you know or can you describe what was that transition like? Like, when you realize that the voice of a woman that I need to represent and other people are uncomfortable and being okay about walking down the path of carrying that discomfort on your shoulder. What was that journey or that moment like? What made you change?
Because after Teen Patti, I actually said that, you put in so much to make a film, it has to give you back that much, in just for yourself. Forget about, it's not the result. It's not about how the film does. It's
Hmm.
about why you made that film and did it achieve that or not. Your own satisfaction with your own creation.
Hmm.
Um, so what had happened was, when I started directing, I was asked so many questions about being a woman director that I said, oh my God, they just want this thing to fit into a box. Woman director will make sad films about women
Hmm.
situations.
Right.
And I said, I'm never going to do that. I'll never fit. So actually, I was functioning out of a place of, I won't be who you want me to be. but I was not even being myself.
Yeah, so it's like
In
you didn't want to conform, but you landed up doing that unknowingly. Wow.
Yeah, or knowingly. I mean, almost like I am, but I'm not fully, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
So it's, uh, and then I think when I reached that rock bottom in my own head of 1 second, do I want to do this at all or not?
Hmm.
And that's when my husband, who's a cinematographer, he told me, I'm not going to let you stop directing. You're an amazing director. You make the film you want, and I'm going to produce it. The most difficult promise he ever made me, but he actually
Wow, that's
facilitated that and came through completely on it.
wow.
He actually let me make the film I wanted to make. And imagine it was a voice from inside where I wanted to see women like you and me on screen, which I had not seen, or friendships that I have had through my life, some of the most nurturing friendships that I've had, who have shaped me to be who I am, have been with women.
Of
I
course.
don't see those nurturing friendships on screen. I always see women politically or socially or culturally pitted against each other, you know.
True.
They're always negative, just influences on
And
each
we
other.
remember Jai Viru, and we don't have any other female reference like that. Like,
Yes.
as if we don't have friendships. That's such a valid
Yes.
point.
So I took two of the most stereotyped relationships of a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law.
Right.
I mean, amongst various other things that I explored in Pash. There were so many things I explored and I got to explore in Pash. And a mistress and a wife.
Yeah.
And those relationships, I literally like healed those relationships for myself, through the film and through the story.
Wow.
And to make it feel it doesn't need to be like this, it can be like this also.
Hmm.
you
People need
know
not look at
or
it
just
only from
deep
one perspective.
female bonding, that is such a huge support system. I think till date, if I talk about support system, the first people who come to my mind are women.
True. And likewise, I
So
can't agree more. Like, I feel like the kind of relationship and understanding or just space to be that a female friend provides to another female is empowering and is beautiful. I totally
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Lena, do you have any quote, any statement that you remember or remind yourself when you're going through all these really, really adventurous journeys, and not externally as much as internally? Like, I feel every time you're talking to a character or you're shaping something new, it shapes you, and you're willing to do that. You're willing to let that process work on you in whichever way it wants to, and I feel that's so courageous and so difficult for people to do.
I don't know. I think I have various different things depending on the situation to hold on
Is there
to.
anything new, current one happening?
This too shall pass. So
Yeah,
when it
we
gets
all
that
say
much, it's like
that.
even this, or when it gets so rock bottom, there's only way up now. I mean, it can't go beyond this, so it's just going to go up now.
Yeah, we still have 2 months in 2020. Let's not talk about that. Like, we don't know where
No,
it is going. Yeah.
no, and really, when I feel absolutely shit,
Mhm.
I actually say tomorrow will be another day, and I don't put judgment on it that it'll be better or worse, but it'll be another day, and
Yeah.
even if I have challenges, there'll be newer challenges, and
Right.
I just don't want to be in the same like, and I don't think I've been like. I know I've been rock bottom on various things, but it's not the same thing over and over. Like I get rid of things, I find newer
No,
holes to get into, like
I'm
pits
so
to get
happy.
into.
I'm so happy that you are like,
Yeah,
okay, I
yeah,
need challenges. I require to grow, and I'm gonna use every bit of this problem to help me do that. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Leena, every time I have spoken to you, even in the past and in these conversations, I feel as if it's a live wire that I am in presence of, because everything that is happening around you, you're so absorbent, and you're like constantly looking at what all can I learn from this, and I think that's commendable. One of the things that your handwriting also supports, that the learnability is so high that no matter what situation you get into or fall into, you figure out the cues and clues to walk out of it through the process. It's not avoiding the process, but through the process. And I wish you all the best and keep that spirit. I think we require people like you who can carry their challenges on their shoulder, whether you're making through that or not. You're just enjoying the process that, oh my God, I have a challenge that I can learn from. That's your way to go about it.
Okay, why do you require a signature along with a handwriting? And I'll ask you why I'm also asking that specific to my signature. But if you can just tell me how is a signature?
So
What does a
signature
signature tell you different?
Signature is a public image. So every time you are speaking in public, when you walk out of your bedroom and when you have to be formal, all of us have two personalities. Some people have more than two, but mostly people have minimum two personalities. One where you're comfortable, you're accepted, and another one where you have to live up to that image. Now you create that formal image. You look at people and say, oh, he speaks well, or people think this is a good way of speaking because of the way he pauses or the way he walks. And we consciously, subconsciously, through advertisement, through films, through books, we keep creating that idea and we keep projecting that idea in public. And this is a very, very subconscious as well as conscious process. So signature represents that public mask, if I may say. Not a great word to use in these times, but a mask which we want other people to look at and treat ourselves in a certain manner. You know how some people believe that their clothes, the watch, some people believe that their clothes, their watch, their possessions will define them in a certain manner because they are creating a public image through these things. Similarly, we do that through our expressions, through our words, through a choice of body language. So all of that we are doing, and signature captures that public persona.
And the handwriting is the inner.
Is who you are. So if you have, the degree of difference between the handwriting and the signature talks about how far are you going to project yourself in public. That's fascinating.
So I changed my signature around 10 years back, and I've sent you both my signatures.
Yes.
Uh, my husband always wants me to use my older signature because he thinks it
Okay.
looks cooler.
He thinks you're cooler in that previous avatar.
I don't know about avatar, but I think just the signature, just judging it by what it looks like on paper.
Okay.
But yeah, so what do you think? Which is a stronger signature for me, you think?
So I definitely believe that your previous signature forced you. And what I mean by signature forced you, signature didn't. So that time, when you wanted to change your signature, you could have chosen anything else. But when we move from our original identity, we move into something. Now that second signature shows what you moved into, how you were representing yourself in your mind. And as I can definitely tell, both these signatures are very different, which means that the transition between how you represented yourself before 2004 and after that, 4 or 14.
Around 14, I think.
14, okay.
Okay,
So,
now that we are talking about it is similar to my journey of
wow.
finding my true voice in my films. I think it's around the same time,
Oh,
give or take a year.
oh my God. So basically, your new signature is also very close to who you are, what your writing is. Now, what happens is it comes with its own cost. If your signatures are in a way misleading, they allow people to look at you as a different person, giving you short-term benefits. But in a long run, you keep going away from yourself and then turn into this person you can't recognize. Whereas if you own up to who you are as a person and your signature is closer to your actual identity with some variation, but closer to your identity, then people judge you and they do not like you and they criticize you in the moment. But after some time, they start accepting you for who you are. So in a long run, that signature works better compared to the one which is like, getting you short-term fame and short-term acknowledgement. And that's what happened. I feel the shift between your new persona is where you do not care much about how people look at you, what they think about you. And I think that has worked better for you because, all that you tried to stop yourself and cover yourself under these garbs or these masks was only creating frustration within. So I feel things like temper, uh, I would not say has gone, but reduced for sure. The momentary feeling of wanting to run away from a situation has not gone, but reduced a lot after you have changed your signature to the new one. So I feel that is very, very interesting as a journey to
That
observe.
is absolutely right.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
Thank
as I'm talking to you, I'm like, and as you're describing it, I think it actually aligns with my journey,
Wow.
which I have experienced, which you're just kind of finding through
And
my
also,
signature.
just to state that the signature is chosen by you, the new signature, because somebody said your signature is not good. So you just decided to change it into something that you thought was good. So it wasn't design, it wasn't something that anybody consulted you on. And which I feel is even, as a thought is so powerful to understand that when you transform within, you start realizing that I require a new choice, new space to express my voice. And this new signature just became one of the expressions of that, which also happened in every walk of your life. That is so beautiful and powerful. I feel every time I look at a handwriting sample, I blush. But when I come across stories like these, where handwriting represented your journey and you could notice it and everybody else could find it, I feel this is so fascinating. This is like, this keeps you going. You're like, oh my God, how can this happen? And that curious mind is still active, and how?
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it just this conversation has made me place through certain blocks, interestingly, of my life. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such a wonderful and inspiring conversation. Last point I want to make, when we spoke about failure, I wanted to say this, that at some level your failures came and you dealt with it in spite of being somebody who fears failure. So it's not like you felt confident, you didn't feel that fear. You knew you're feeling all those emotions of fear and anxiety, everything, and you still chose what you knew you needed to choose. I think that is so beautiful and powerful to keep in mind every time. All of us have those journeys. So thank you so much for sharing this with me and our listeners. This is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully, lots of other conversations with you through life.
You bet.
Yeah.
Oh. We all feel weighed down by a critical voice inside our heads. Do you feel sometimes, in spite of all your talent and wonderful achievements, you keep questioning your worthiness? I have seen many capable people suffering from this doubt, this internal questioning called imposter syndrome. On our Friday episode, let's explore this self sabotaging behavior and ways to deal with it. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Absolutely Right. Please review, comment, and share this episode with somebody who can get benefited by our conversation. Share your comments, feedback, and question with me on my Instagram handle at Aditi Surana. And if you want to know how I use graphology and other some super effective coaching tools to deal with more than 27 mental blocks, then visit aditisurana.com. If you like this podcast, then don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on IVM Network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Let's connect on Friday. Till then, happy writing!